Alright guys, BLM here, we're back with a new video. In this video, we'll be talking about the beginning of American Ninja Warrior and American Ninja Warrior Season 1. Now, I've done a similar video to this for American Ninja Challenge, which was the precursor to this show. And this video will act as sort of a continuation of that video. So if you want to get the full context of everything I'm talking about here, go watch that video. There's going to be a link in the description. Now, American Ninja Warrior originally started off as Season 5 of American Ninja Challenge, but they decided to make the show on a much bigger scale. But at the end of the day, this was still the American qualifiers for the original show Sasuke, with Season 1 of American Ninja Warrior here being the qualifier for Sasuke 23, and this format stayed the same for the first 3 seasons of the show. ANW 1 aired on G4, the same channel that aired Ninja Warrior and American Ninja Challenge, but American Ninja Challenge was just a segment on Attack of the Show. American Ninja Warrior was actually its own show, consisting of 8 half-hour episodes that were edited in a similar way to the way Ninja Warrior was edited. The hosts here were Blair Herter and Allison Hayslip, with Blair providing the commentary through the runs, which, by the way, he was pretty terrible at. I mean, he had very little emotion and made really dumb jokes throughout. But then we got Allison, who was considered the co-host, but she really was kind of like the sideline reporter. And she did remain on the show until Season 3. So the way that the show worked back then is that there was only 1 qualifying course. Obviously now we're more used to 5 or 6 qualifying courses. But back then, the only qualifying course there was the one in LA. With the course being built in like some sort of parking lot that looked like it was right outside of a mall. And another strange thing here is the fact that there was no actual prize money for winning the show. Unlike now, where you get $1 million for winning American Ninja Warrior, back then there was nothing. I mean, you technically get Kanzen Seiha and Sasuke, which if you don't know that is total victory. So you would get the prize money from that. But Sasuke's prize money at the time was only 2 million yen, which is about equivalent to $17,000 to $18,000. Another interesting thing is that most of the competitors here were free runners, or had at least some sort of free running background. And these sort of competitors pretty much dominated ANW until ANW 5, where it seems like a transition started to happen that really added more upper body obstacles throughout the course, which favored rock climbers instead. But now let's start talking about the qualifying round, which consisted of 6 obstacles, no time limit, and the top 30 would move on to the semifinals, which is a similar format to what we have today. But now on ANW, a clear guarantees that you have a spot in the semifinals, but the thing is that this course was pretty easy, and it was obviously built to be a speed course, and because that rule is not in place, meaning that even if you clear, that doesn't necessarily mean that you move on. So with about 50 people clearing the qualifying course, this course was more about speed than it was actual completion. So the course itself started off with the quintuple steps, which was a pretty iconic Sasuke obstacle. Mind you, this version's a bit different. However, this obstacle or a similar obstacle in the quad steps were actually the first obstacle of every qualifying course up until ANW 8. Then was the rope swing, which was a simple rope swing. You literally just grab the rope and swing over to the other platform. However, this was actually a pretty deadly obstacle, probably one of the tougher obstacles in this course, as the landing platform was pretty far away from the rope, leading to many people missing the platform, and this obstacle did actually return for ANW 2, but hasn't appeared in this form since then. And then we got the barrel roll, which sucks. Literally no one failed here. It was just a long barrel that was supposed to be a balance obstacle, but it barely moved, and it was so wide that it was like extremely easy. Then we got the spider wall, which was literally just a basic spider walk. But they did make it out of wood instead of plexiglass, so that did catch some people off guard, and we did get a couple fails here. Then was the pipe slider, which is a classic Sasuke obstacle, but in this version there are 3 drops. And because the pipe is relatively short, this caused a lot of people to disrail off the track, while some others just lost their grip during these drops. And this would lead to a couple notable names falling here. And then finally we got the warped wall, which wasn't even a warped wall. It was literally just a half pipe, really, as it didn't have a curve at the top. And competitors were actually given 5 tries here instead of the standard 3 nowadays. However, the run-up was pretty short, so at least there's that, which did lead to a couple competitors losing a lot of time here. And as I said, time was a major factor here, with the people that did move on, the top 30, all cleared within a minute. And most of the clears that were shown in the first hour of the show didn't even make it to the next round. This round in particular, though, was edited pretty poorly, where in standard like Ninja Warrior fashion, the first few people failed the first obstacle, then someone clears it only to fail the second obstacle, then the next person progresses even further, and they continue this format. But here it's really bad where they do it so blatantly, leading to a pretty boring first episode, as you kind of know where this is going. But again, this is kind of Ninja Warrior in general. but I just feel like this first episode is even more formulaic. And this also led to the final episode of the qualifying round being kind of boring, where almost everyone cleared. I believe all but 2 runs that were shown in the final episode were clears, and all those clears were the top times of the qualifying round. Now for notable runs that didn't make it to the semifinals, we got Brett Sims, who was a part of ANC 1 and 2, and one of the bigger names of the season. He ended up failing at the pipe slider, with his bar just simply falling off the track. Lucy Romberg from ANC 3 and 4 also failed there. And we got Lauren Ball, who did compete here but wasn't shown in the actual episodes, but it's known from external information that he also did fail the pipe slider. Then we got Ryan Stratis, who again is a pretty big name today, and I believe he had applied for every ANC before this, and he was able to clear the course. However, he lost a lot of time at the warped wall. He missed it a few times, and because of that, he didn't have a fast enough time to qualify for the next round. Obviously though, most of the notable names did move on to the semifinals. We got Brian Kretsch, who along with Lauren Ball, Ryan Stratis, and David Campbell are the only 4 people to compete on every season. He was actually the 30th place finisher and just barely made it to the next round with a time of exactly 1 minute. Rousselis Perry, also known as Blackie Chan from ANC 2, also did clear here and moved on, along with some now ANW legends and some pretty big names from ANC in Levi Muhlenberg, Brian Orozco, and David Campbell, with David Campbell having the 2nd fastest time of the day. Some other prominent competitors from this early era that made it through were people like Paul Darnell, Rich King, Ryan Cousins, Kane Sinclair, Travis Furlanick, Sean Morris, Jake Smith, and Shane Daniels, and most of which having a free running background. However, all these people that I just listed are pretty much retired at this point. Then the fastest time of the qualifying round was William Spencer, another free runner who completely dominated the course, clearing it in only 33 seconds. But now we're going to move on to the semifinals, where the first 6 obstacles here are exactly the same, but 3 more obstacles were added to the end of the course, and the top 15 moved on, which is a format, again, is pretty tradition to American Ninja Warrior today. The 3 new obstacles here were pretty bad. The first one was the Tarzan swing, which was literally just 12 ropes in a row that you had to swing through, which did have a couple fails and also some people having some trouble on it, but really at the end of the day it was a pretty boring obstacle. Then the next obstacle was the jumping bars, which was an iconic obstacle from Sasuke, and the course wrapped up with the cargo climb, which was the final obstacle of the qualifiers up until it was replaced by the spider climb in ANW 5. And this obstacle's just a cargo net. It's boring. It's so boring. To the point where they actually cut out a lot of the people climbing it. They literally just fast forwarded through it. Now, out of the 30 runs here, 22 cleared the course. And again, a clear did not guarantee that you moved on. You had to be one of the top 15 times. Out of the 8 that failed the course, 2 were at the pipe slider, 1 at the warped wall, 2 at the Tarzan swing, and there were 3 at the jumping bars. Brian Kretsch was one of these fails at the pipe slider, while Rousselis Perry was one of the fails at the jumping bars. And Jake Smith, who would later become a pretty prominent ANW competitor, did clear the course here, but was in 19th place, so he didn't move on. The top 15 here were Jupe Katana, Jeff Ida, Brian Orozco, Rick Huelga, Andrew Carson, Kane Sinclair, Shane Daniels, Ryan Cousins, Rich King, Paul Darnell, Travis Furlanick, Sean Morris, David Campbell, Levi Muhlenberg, and William Spencer, who once again got the fastest time of the day. And next we move on to the finals, which narrowed down the competitors from 15 to the 10 that were going to be sent to Sasuke 23. And the finals here sucked. For some reason, instead of having an obstacle course as the finals, as the determining thing on whether you're going to Japan or not, they instead decided to have like 2 training challenges, where the top 10 total times from both of these challenges moved on. And as I said, these challenges sucked. The first one here was a strength and endurance based challenge, where competitors were strapped to a bungee cord and had to transport 10 blocks across the beach, running back and forth in the very hot sun. I literally do not get what they were thinking here. I mean, transporting blocks literally has nothing to do with any of the skills required for Sasuke. And due to it being a really hot day at the time of filming, William Spencer, the top qualifier from qualifying and semifinals, gets medically evacuated from the competition here after suffering from a heat stroke after the first round, which does suck for him because he actually had one of the top times. I believe he had the 3rd fastest time in the first round, and if he had been able to compete in the second round, he probably would have moved on to Japan. Now, the second challenge here was an obstacle course, but it was a really dumb one. It was 3 obstacles, but once again, these had nothing to do with Sasuke obstacles. You first had to crawl under a cargo net, and then after that, carry a heavy barrel across 2 logs, and he wrapped it up by going through a set of tires, where if you missed a tire or your hands touched the tires, you would have to start the obstacle again. And this is the most finicky thing because a lot of people like David Campbell and Sean Morris, who were very strong in qualifying and semifinals, really got screwed over by these rules, leading to them being 13th and 14th place respectively. Ryan Cousins ended up in 12th place and Andrew Carson ended up in 11th place, and with William Spencer being medevaced, that rounds up the group that didn't make it to Japan. Now, all of these people would be pretty prominent competitors in later seasons, each having a varying degree of success. The 10 that moved on to Sasuke were Rick Huelga, Jupe Katana, Jeff Ida, Shane Daniels, Kane Sinclair, Rich King, Paul Darnell, Travis Furlanick, Levi Muhlenberg, and Brian Orozco, who was the top qualifier here in the finals. Now, an interesting note here is that 6 out of the 10 qualifiers here were prominent freerunners, with most of them being part of Team Tempest. And now it's time to talk about Sasuke 23. These 10 people moved on to Sasuke 23, which is probably my favorite Sasuke tournament. It's definitely up there. And there were some pretty good results overall. The first stage was mostly the same as Sasuke 22's, which I talked about in the American Ninja Challenge video, if you want further details on that. But the first 2 obstacles were changed, but these 2 obstacles didn't really have much effect on these competitors. ANW 1 didn't actually air until December of 2009, but Sasuke 23 aired in September, which means that Sasuke viewers like myself already knew who qualified and how they performed, though a lot of these runs were cut from the Japanese broadcast, so it was interesting to watch the full runs here. The first person to run here was Rick Huelga, who had a relatively slow run at the beginning of the course, and after failing the warp wall a couple times, he was able to make it to the slider jump, which is towards the end of the course, but sadly ran out of time after he grabbed the net. Rick Huelga would return for ANW 2, but would fail in qualifying, and we would never see him ever again. Jupe Katana had a much faster run, getting to the warp wall about 20 seconds faster than Rick, but he failed the wall numerous times, and eventually, just like Rick, timed out at the slider jump. Jupe Katana would never compete in American Ninja Warrior ever again, though he did openly apply for ANW 7, but was not called back. Jeff Ida set a solid pace throughout his run, but like the others, he also stumbled at the warp wall. However, he wasn't even able to clear it. Jeff Ida, to my knowledge, has never competed ever again as well. Then we move on to Shane Daniels, who set a solid pace at the beginning of the course, but on the jumping spider, his feet wouldn't stick to the walls. He wasted a lot of time and energy there. And while he did get up the wall in his second try, he did run out of time right after clearing the slider jump. Shane Daniels became a pretty big name in these earlier ANW competitions, doing extremely well in ANW 2, competing up until ANW 5, but has since retired. Kane Sinclair, just like Shane Daniels, set a pretty good pace up until the jumping spider, where again, his feet wouldn't stick. He did eventually clear it and was able to get up the wall with enough time to still clear, but he was so slow on the slider jump and the rope ladder, and he ran out of time right when he got on top of the rope ladder, being one of the closest people to not clear the course. Kane Sinclair, like Shane Daniels, did compete for a while afterwards, but never reached this level of success ever again. Rich King ran next, and he finally broke the curse. He finally had a really solid run throughout, and became the first clear of the day, clearing with over 13 seconds left on the clock. After that was Paul Darnell, who set a really good pace throughout the course, until the half-pipe attack, where he mistimed his landing and his foot hit the water, and he actually ended up injuring himself in the process. Paul Darnell would continue to compete in a few later tournaments, having a lot of success in ANW 4, but hasn't competed since ANW 5. And then we have Travis Furlanick, who, I actually haven't mentioned this yet, but he's actually the nephew of David Campbell, and he was setting a really good pace up until the jumping spider, but David Campbell in Sasuke 22 did fail because of losing too much time testing out the trampoline at the jumping spider, so Travis decided to just rush it, and because of that, he ends up missing the walls, making him the earliest fail out of all of these Americans. Travis Furlanick, however, would be a prominent competitor in ANW, and performing really well in ANWs 2 and 3, but hasn't competed since ANW 4. And now for the final 2 competitors here, Levi Muhlenberg and Brian Orozco, who were the 2 veterans here, both having competed in Sasuke's 20 and 21, with Levi also competing in Sasuke 22, and both breezed through the course, with Levi clearing in the fastest time of the day. So Rich King, Brian Orozco, and Levi Muhlenberg were the 3 to move on to stage 2. which include a new obstacle after the salmon ladder in the unstable bridge. Rich King was the first to run and cleared the salmon ladder with a pretty solid time and was the first person to ever attempt the unstable bridge, but he had a lot of trouble building momentum and ended up failing at the transition. Now, Rich King, like a lot of these other freerunners that I mentioned, would become a pretty prominent competitor in ANW, but like these other freerunners, he hasn't competed in quite a while at this point. Next was Brian Orozco, who failed the salmon ladder in Sasuke 21, and while he did still have a lot of trouble with it this time, he was able to clear the salmon ladder, but it did take him 30 seconds, and by the time he got to the unstable bridge, he was really running out of time, and he rushed the end of the obstacle, leading to him losing his grip right at the platform. Now, Brian would return for future tournaments, doing pretty well in ANWs 2 and 3, but after that, he had a bit of a slump and eventually retired around ANW 6. And finally, we got Levi Muhlenberg, the last man standing. He did clear stage 2 in Sasuke 20, but he did fail the salmon ladder in Sasuke 21. But this time, he did have a little bit trouble with the salmon ladder at the very beginning, but he did eventually clear it, and he blew through the rest of the course, clearing the course with 18 seconds still on the clock. Meaning that he was the only American to move on to stage 3, which again, Levi failed stage 3 in Sasuke 20, failing at the Shin cliffhanger, and the stage has stayed exactly the same since then, but sadly, Levi once again failed at the cliffhanger, but this time even earlier than last time. In Sasuke 20, he failed to jump from the second to third ledges. Here, it seemed like he was trying to do a new sort of strategy, but he ended up failing to transition from the first to the second ledge, as he didn't leave enough room for his left hand, making him lose his grip here. Now, Levi would return and do pretty well in ANW 2, however, he missed out on ANW 3, and an early exit in ANW 4 would end his American Ninja Warrior career. Though at the time, he was the big star of the show, back then was looked at as the best competitor around, kind of similar to the way that Drew Dressel was looked at in the current seasons. So there you go, that is all of American Ninja Warrior Season 1, which is a really weird season to look back on now, considering obviously the much lower production value, and also just how different the field competitors are to what we have now. But this season is still really nostalgic to me, as I remember watching it when it came out, and obviously I've continued to watch it ever since. Though I don't really have the most positive feelings about the current show, but that's for another video. Now, I might continue on this series, doing a video on ANWs 2, 3, and possibly 4. But we'll see how this goes first. But yeah, that is the video. That is everything about American Ninja Warrior Season 1. Thank you for watching.